at the Cecil Hotel in Shimla. This is a place I absolutely love to visit. I go there every year now. This year I haven't been there, but every year I have some work with the Himachal government, so I'll go to Shimla, and I absolutely love that place, and I love to come and visit the Shoolini University sometime soon. Okay, so let's get this started. What has COVID-19 done to our world? I don't want to talk too much negative about, and you must be already bombarded with a lot of information that you may be reading about COVID-19. So this is what the map of the world today in terms of the countries that are totally blocked from travel look like as I look back 2-3 days ago. So one of my travel agents sent me this notice about some countries are opening up, you can plan your travel and all. And when I looked into it, this is what our world has come to. So all the countries in red are totally choked and blocked, right? So this is what a tiny virus can bring us humans to, totally locking it in, right? So this is about, and then why I show this slide is this tells us how fickle our life is and how fickle we are, and then what we could do. And these are the times of change, right? And how we should be willing and ready to adapt to this change. So this brings me to a quote that I really like from Sheryl Sandberg, who's the Chief Operation Officer at Facebook. And she talks about we cannot change what we are not aware of. So before COVID-19, we were not aware of anything of this scale would come, right? The last pandemic of this scale happened in 1918 with the Spanish influenza. And all of us would obviously were oblivious to this fact. Even till the time of January, February, we were all, especially in India and other parts of the world, we were all happily thinking this is only a China thing, right? But this, blew up, and it has taken us to where we are. So once we are aware of this change, once the change becomes a part of our life, we cannot help but change ourselves. And today's talk, I will just be mentioning about what are certain elements that we guys as pharmacists can change about ourselves, can change about the environment around us, and how we can be leaders of that change and leaders of our careers as well, and especially for students of pharmacy who are going out into the world, would potentially be working for different companies or organizations. What can you take from this episode of your life, this difficult situation or times of our life, to learn and bring about change, right? So this is a principle which I call as many small solutions approach, and I really believe in this. So think about it. Think about a movie where a disaster happens, really a disastrous movie, and what happens in that? There would be a hero. He will come and he will make a desperate effort and a change, and there will be triumph at the end of it with just one incredible act, right? That's what we are actually waiting for today, by waiting for that vaccine to come and just open up those borders, and maybe that world map again looks very green. That's something that we are waiting for. People are desperately waiting that should happen, or the virus to miraculously disappear, right? But that's not happening anytime soon. Even in China now there is a second wave. Even in India, we know the situation's obviously going from bad to worse. So what can we do? Obviously, all of us have been following some safe distancing, social distancing, have been fastidiously washing our hands, wearing masks. So these are all small solutions that can help us get through this, right? So what this situation tells us is that while big solutions often change the trends and often change how the world may look like, in the interim, until the time that solution is available, you obviously cannot do anything but be involved in many small solutions. Even a vaccine, even if it comes, right? We don't know today whether it'll be 100% effective or not. If the common vaccine that's available for cold and flu, it's at best 40 to 60% effective. So we all, if we were to all religiously take the flu vaccine, we still get cold episodes. That's because vaccine is not 100% effective. So what do? We manage our life by having these small solutions, right? So even when a vaccine comes for COVID-19, we may still have to maintain such small approaches, right? Even thinking about today or in the pre-COVID times, when a student would be coming into university, or a worker would be going into office when they had symptoms like cold and flu, we thought it's a very minor symptom, and we would actually say, bravo, man, this person is really, even though he's sick, he's coming into work. Actually, that's not the right thing. Maybe in the post-COVID world, that will be frowned upon. And these are small solutions we need to change our behavior on, right? As pharmacists, what can we do? There are numerous examples that I have seen and read and seen in Singapore as well, where I live. The pharmacy students used excess ethanol that was available in the lab to prepare some hand sanitizers to distribute in the community. They became community volunteers to ensure that there was a safe distancing at supermarkets or in markets around us, educating our parents and elderly about it, that it's a deadly virus. So as pharmacists, what can you do in your own communities through those small solutions till a big solution is found? And as you go out into the world, into your work environment, take this essential approach to bring this to your career as well. There is a colleague that I have in our offices, in our plant in Ahmedabad. And when in the manufacturing plant, there are obviously managers and people around, managers who manage the people, but there are lots of casual workers. And those casual workers tend to come from lower socioeconomic segment, and they may not be as aware of the social distancing, wearing masks, washing and sanitizing the hands frequently. So this person stood up, and he was a pharmacist. He stood up and he actually managed them, educated them, told them to follow the principles, and then this helped us continue our operations without having a single COVID positive case in our plants in Ahmedabad. Whereas some of the companies like Zydus had so many cases, and even a couple of AGMs and DGMs had lost their lives as well. So these are people who are having, as pharmacists, we have patient centricity at our heart. So make sure you bring these small solutions to your workplace as well, and then bring that patient centricity and the love for science and patient care as you go forward, right? So that's the many small solutions approach that I wanted to tell you, and this is applicable to pretty much everybody. The second part that I wanted to bring is the power of social learning. So what this epidemic or pandemic has taught us is that human well-being, the environment and economy, they're all interlinked, right? So you see when lockdowns have happened, economy has come down, right? Human well-being is obviously suffering because of the virus, or psychological stress by just staying at home and not going out and all. But little does one know that there is a lot of impact on the environment as well, right? So while you are sitting in very pretty part of the world, and you may be able to see probably snow-capped mountains in the distance, which you won't ordinarily see. And I mean, I've read people from Jalandhar seeing the Dhauldar ranges as well. So that's happening. But at the same time, this part of our life actually has been very damaging for the environment, because imagine the amount of masks and PPE that's being generated, people sitting at home and ordering all the food from food delivery services that is coming in all the plastic containers, etc. There has been lots of reports of poaching of animals because there are not enough forest rangers out there to monitor the safaris or the forests, right? So it actually has been very damaging for the environment. So what I want to say here is that this principle of social learning, what exactly is social learning? It's when people actually learn from each other, and then that becomes the part of our behavior. So think about this: if this thing becomes normal, that when this adversity that we have had, people start managing their hygiene, people start managing their distances, but at the same time, we as pharmacists, we also need to make sure that we are contributing to the environment, making sure that we are not polluting the environment. We're making sure we are actually developing solutions to the point that it is actually contributing to the positive impact on the environment, right? An example, as pharmacists, I'll share. My wife has been working on a project to work on recyclable blisters, or actually even taking post-consumer use blisters and repurposing them for some other things, like we could make paper out of it, or make foils out of it, which could be used in non-medicinal purposes. So that's the kind of thing that you as a community can learn from each other, and bring that power of social learning and behavioral change as you go out into the industry, right? So that's something that I wanted to leave you with this principle, right? And so these are two broad principles that stem from my passion of managing people, as well as educating people on sustainability and bringing about behavioral change. Then there are three other principles that I wanted to share, which are about building an innovation culture. So as and Dr. Kapoor was sharing with me earlier that you have several divisions of research in your M.Pharma and PhD stream, but I believe a lot of you B.Pharma graduates want to either work to an M.Pharma degree or want to go out and work in the industry or in a company where research is carried out. So the next three principles that I want to share are about how innovation cultures thrive, right? So this is a principle I strongly believe in, which drives innovation, is that you have tolerance for failure, but there should be absolutely zero tolerance for incompetence. Okay, so what does this really mean, right? A lot of the times when we talk about innovation, the term is used, we should have tolerance for failure. Yes, when you do experiments, you will fail several times. And experiments don't just mean, doesn't just mean lab experiment. Experiment could be when you work, if you become a medical sales rep, you're experimenting the doctor detailing that you're doing to a doctor and explaining about your product. You may try different technologies like augmented reality or virtual reality or digital detailing instead of using those paper visual aids that have been around for God knows how many years, right? So there should be a tolerance for failure. That's always talked about. But what happens is often too many times it is taken as, okay, the failure has happened, let's try again. But the problem is we don't learn from our failures, and then it becomes a systemic issue. So that is why we have to identify, is this a problem with competence? Is this a problem that you have with your mediocre technical skills, right? So as you go out into the industry, I would encourage each one of you, as you go out to your PhDs as well, I would encourage you to build your skills and competence to that level that people seek out to you and the people reach out to you for your competence, and they bring their ideas for you to discuss and vet, or they seek ideas from you so that you are seen as a knowledge holder and somebody who's very skillful at this, right? So there's another thing that we always talk about, that especially in big companies like P&G, we talk about celebrating failure, but oftentimes it's not so much about celebrating failure, it's about celebrating the learning that you get out of the failure. Because if you keep celebrating failure, you keep failing over and over and over again. So that's one thought which you should really focus on, developing your competence to be the best as you study, right? The next one is also talked about in big R&D organization, is that we should let people experiment. There should be a willingness to experiment. A lot of M.Pharma and PhD students and your professors would agree with me that this is something we should allow our students to do as well. But it has to be counterbalanced by a very significant principle, which I believe that this experimentation should be highly disciplined. So anytime you design an experiment, you should design it in a manner that you have a learning mindset, right? So Amazon, which is a big company, has when they put money into any research or any program, they don't actually use the term ROI, which is used in a lot of companies and industries, which is called return on my investment. I believe when you get grants from your university or government grants, the governments also look at what is the return on my investment, how many papers am I publishing from this, or how many patents am I getting out of this, right? That's very important because that drives the research forward. But at the same time, we have to focus that it should be focused not just on return on investment, it should be focused on return on learning. So what do you do when you have that mindset, right? You design killer experiments first. So you make sure that you're not doing experiments all the way up to only know that the final experiment is something that will fail. So what we do here at P&G is we design killer experiments first. So if you know that if in some cases this particular drug is not going to work on a particular segment of patients, we test it on those patients. Instead of testing it on a patient where the drug may work and we may celebrate, but in certain segment of patient it won't work. So if that's the end objective, you test it there, and if it passes there, it passes everywhere, right? So design those killer experiments first and make sure that you're highly disciplined in designing your experiments. Okay, and the last principle in terms of innovation capability is what I call as collaboration, but with individual accountability. And this is something that we often don't see at the university. While you may be doing some group projects at your bachelor level, but at master's and PhD level, a lot of the students are pretty much working individually, but you may still rely on some other people for, generating a segment of the data or generating a part of the project. So while collaboration is important, oftentimes where organizations and people suffer is that they wait for consensus. So I'm working in a group of 10 people. Until everybody says yes, my project cannot move forward. And that consensus is actually a poison for research and for innovation. So do not wait for consensus. If you really have conviction in your ideas and you're working in a team, make sure you and your team members act with significant leadership and take accountability for the portions that you are responsible for, so that you deliver that. As you go out into the corporate world, this is one principle I believe you all should imbibe, because this is highly valued when people own up responsibility and take that responsibility, whether it's for success or for failures. One of the things my boss always tells me at P&G is that when something fails, the blame stops on her shoulders, right? Because she's the boss. But when something succeeds, the credit should flow all the way to the bottom of the organization. And that's something, as you go out into the industry, you guys will realize good innovation cultures will have that kind of a principle. An example I remember from this is from the chief medical officer of J&J. They were working on a drug for 10 years. And at the end of that 10-year period, the drug failed for that particular indication. And the board, the company's board of directors called this person, and they talked about what happened, why did this drug fail, and all the things. And instead of pinpointing the errors in different teams that were working on, he, being the leader, stood up and said, "This is my responsibility, really." And when you do that, what happens is that you're actually telling your people that you have their back. And with that, people do not get scared for trying their new ideas. It doesn't become a risk-averse organization, in your case, a university as well. So be bold with your ideas, own up to it. And like I said in the first one, these ideas are all interlinked. So if you have no tolerance for incompetence, people will automatically become very competent, and then they will own up, and there will be high degree of accountability at the same time. And then there'll be high degree of collaboration as a result. Right. So these were some principles that I wanted to share with you. And then moving on to post-COVID-19, what's really changing in healthcare? And this probably impacts a lot of you, because you guys are going out, especially the fourth year students or some PhD and master student, as you're going out into the world, what's really changing, right? So there are some trends that I have observed, heard, listened to, as possible ramifications of the COVID-19. And these are a few of them. There could be many that would impact all of us, because we are all pharmacists and we are all working, or at least studying in the pharmaceutical environment, right? So I will take you through each one of them and then give you examples on how they are changing and how you could adapt as you go out into the industry. So the very first one is the environment is changing on how you detail a doctor or HCP. So for those students who are interested in joining, sales force of a company as medical representatives or medical science liaison kind of roles, where you will be going with your company's product to a doctor and detailing about that product, how this has changed in the last 3-4 months, right? Because doctors are not seeing patients. Even if they are seeing patients, they don't want to see any extra person in their clinic. So certainly the sales rep is the last person they want to see. So how do you promote your company's product in such a time? And how do you promote it better than the same product that another company is offering? And how do you do it better still, right? So what a lot of companies have been piloting is a digital detailing. So developing interactive videos, developing 3D videos, developing augmented reality content, developing virtual reality content as well, and doing this all remotely. And what I have observed and seen is that doctors, and in some Western countries like Singapore and Australia, and even in Europe, where even detailing happens at the pharmacy store level. It doesn't happen in India, but even pharmacists, because the markets are very highly educated, so a lot of the products get self-selected by consumers. So the influence there is played by the pharmacist and not the doctor. So even those kind of detailings are now happening virtually. So as you go out into the field, these how good are you at your digital skills? How good are you at recommending that the company move into this space? Because we don't know when another such pandemic may happen, because we may come out of this in another 6 months or 1 year's time. But what happens, will it permanently change the trend? Will doctors no longer be willing to host pharmacy sales rep in their clinics? That's something to think about, right? So that's changing. The second part that's obviously changed quite significantly is about manufacturing and sourcing localization, right? So companies are talking about that, we have to internalize, we don't have to internationalize, we don't have to globalize our supply chains. A lot of the APIs that come to India, as you know, come from China. And often a lot of the companies who were reliant on that were still those companies, some of those companies were based in Wuhan, which was completely closed, suffered for a long period of time. So this becomes a good opportunity for countries to localize some of their manufacturing locations and sourcing locations for APIs as well as the finished product, right? This gives the opportunity to the pharma world to, especially in a big country like India, to really have more jobs on offer for such places. But at the same time, we have to be smart about it on whether we can do this in a better manner. I talked about sustainability in the past, right? A few slides ago, I was talking about it. So what can you bring to the company that will make this localization more attractive to them? Reducing energy costs, that has a positive impact on the environment straight away, but also has an impact on the bottom line, the profits that the company makes. So, in our company, I have been involved in several projects where we have reduced batch cycle times, which means the time that a product is made in, right? So a batch of a product is made in. And you imagine when we are making 5 tons, 10 tons, 20 tons worth of material, batch cycle times of, if you have a 90-minute heating cycle and you're heating 5 tons of material, even if you reduce that by 5 minutes, that's a significant energy saving to your company. How you can bring those mindsets as you go along with all your formulation knowledge, all your medicinal chemistry knowledge. This is a trend that you can make yourself competent in and then bring forward as you go out into the industry. The third part is virtual consultation. So patients were also doing doctors' virtual consultations. Patients are not going to the clinic anymore. I know this was happening with Practo and other such apps that were available in India as well, but this COVID-19 has actually accelerated this trend as well. So a lot of the consumers, the patients are actually going to doctors' clinic, not going to the doctor's clinic. So previously, when sales rep would go and give their samples to be given to the patients, now the patient is not going to the doctor's clinic. Now the doctor doesn't get to try your sample. So how do you manage this, right? So is there a supply chain that you can manage? Is it something that you can manage on behalf of the doctor to be sent to his patient through a courier or through some other channel that your company can pilot and pivot and then develop into a significant superiority as you go out into the industry? And the last thing is digital transformation. Obviously, this has been happening for a long while, but this COVID-19 has obviously accelerated this even further. So as you go out or even use in your PhD research, see how you can merge a lot of such technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D printing. These are things that are the future. And the earlier we adapt them, the earlier we adopt them, our future is going to be better, because this is where the talent is going to be valued in companies in future. So, is there a programming language that you can learn? Is there something that you can learn how to code? Those are additional skills, because now no longer just pharmacy skills that we have will be just enough for us as we go along. So try to imbibe, try to get, there are so many courses on Coursera when you have your summer vacations, learn about them. There are so many courses on good communication skills as well. So that's something that also, has been, I didn't cover in my slides today, but it actually is an overarching thing. One thing that I personally, because I grew up in India and I did not have, I'll admit, did not have good communication skills, but that's something that I really persevered on. to make as a competitive advantage for me as I go out into the field. And now, I do a lot of external talks primarily because I became confident at public speaking. So please take those opportunities. I don't know if Shoolini has a Toastmasters club or not, but if not, maybe that's something that you can establish where people get, really shun their shyness to talk in public. And I mean, above and all these elements that I talked about, that's also a single most factor for potential success as you grow out post COVID, right? So that's a big thing here. And I have one last slide, and it's not coming. Okay, here it is. So these are some upticks that I see because of this COVID-19. So this is for people who are passionate about research, who are passionate about working in this domain. And I believe some industries will be looking into this, so there could be more jobs in this area, or at least passion in this area for companies, right? So, Ayush Ministry has been significantly talking about ingredients, herbal ingredients, natural ingredients, and Ayurveda in India. And a lot of companies with a lot of agility, have come up with immunity kits. Dabur has done that. Himalaya has done that as well. So there are more and more such ingredients that are hidden gems of Ayurveda. And I personally, in my work, I focus a lot on Ayurvedic research as well here in Singapore, because we look at Vicks brand. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I believe this is an area which will grow in further. Immunity is another area, because now everybody is aware of immunity. Because of COVID-19, suddenly vitamin C products are off the shelves. What the products that were sold for 20 rupees are now being sold for 80 rupees. So there is obviously the current products that are there in the immunity domain that like vitamin C, zinc, and all. But there is an opportunity to research and develop newer products, probably in natural space, probably in synthetic or semi-synthetic space, that are important, right? The other area is sleep. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, Philips did a big study in India, because they make those sleep monitors and all, especially for people with COPD and several respiratory disorders. So Philips has a big arm, not many people know, in the sleep apnea space. So they did a big research in India where they focus on several medical colleges, and through those medical colleges, people who are visiting, young people who are visiting, they asked them these questions about their sleep deprivation and their quality of sleep and all. And I was surprised to read that research that 95% of young adults had sleep deprivation. And a lot of it is not driven by COVID, but pre-COVID, because of our gadgets. We are looking at the screen all the time, and the screen emits blue light. So, and then we are obviously looking at it when we are sleeping in, just before sleeping in bed as well. And that doesn't because eye is linked to your melatonin release, right? So if melatonin is not released, you don't fall asleep. So that's a big area for research, really. And then COVID-19 has obviously driven up the anxiety that people have, and we know anxiety is not good for sleep either, because cortisol levels are up, and cortisol is not good for sleep. So that's an area of improvement. That's where ashwagandha has become suddenly a big thing, because ashwagandha controls our cortisol levels, moderates our steroidal levels in the body, and we can fall asleep. So this is an area that I see potentially improving and becoming big as well. The next area is cleansing and sanitization. So, hand sanitizers have become big, but generally soaps, and this area is going to become big and big and big, because more and more people will become conscious about personal hygiene, washing hands more frequently. There will be consumption. There is an area where we could consider probably, a thin transdermal film that you can, thin film that you can just rub it like this, and it's portable to carry, more portable than a hand sanitizer. I don't know. There are several things that you could potentially look at in the area. Vaccines, obviously, and antiviral drugs. This will be a consistent research, but I call this as a big solution approach rather than the small solution approach, which we talked about. So that's something that I'm not sure if a lot of Shoolini professors are looking at it, but this could be a big area in the future. Obviously requires a lot of investment, but as you go out into work for big companies as well, this could be an area to work for. And the last but not the least, I talked about e-pharmacy, because the pharmacy shops were closed all this time. E-pharmacy things became bigger. Even during Amazon, which was founded as a book company back in the 90s, But during the SARS epidemic early in the 2000s, that's the time when Amazon started selling more and more things on their platform, and they became so big. And today they are obviously a huge e-commerce company. And similar things I see for happening for e-pharmacy players as well. So I'm not sure if there are people with entrepreneurial spirits in the audience today, but this is an area to look forward to as well, as you go out, or working for such companies also could provide you a good platform. So keep your horizon broad and wide, and think big, really. So I think that was my last slide. I wanted to leave you with this quote, really. We have been talking about how to look forward, and that was the title of my talk as well. But looking forward is only as good as learning from our previous experiences, which I talked. Right. So make sure you make your experiments. When you do any experiment, you learn a lot from it. That is when you will be able to connect all the dots in future. So Steve Jobs once said that, again, you cannot connect all the dots looking forward because future is uncertain. But you can connect them by looking backwards. So sometimes those dots would somehow connect in future. You just have to go in. Obviously, experimentation is one piece, but then there could be other things. You just have to trust your gut, your destiny, probably your karma, or whatever it is, right? This approach has never let him down, and has made all the difference in his life. So while we talk about looking forward, make sure you keep those learnings along with you, and use those to really shape your future. And with that, I wish you all the very best. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. You all can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, and I'm happy to even connect beyond that if you have any career guidance or advice to you if you need. Yeah. So with that, I will hand it over to the moderators.
So thank you, Dr. Kochar, for this wonderful talk. So I hope that the students and all the participants have benefited from it, and they must have learned so many new things from you. So I'll just go on to the questions if you have any. So we have one question from Dr. Gurjot Kaur. She's asking that is there any one skill that is going to be crucial for the students who are finishing and soon will be joining in the job force?
Yeah. Thanks, Gurjot, for asking that question. Gurjot and I go long back. We studied together. She was my senior at DIPSAR. So good to have this question for you. So I believe there are, obviously, as we talked through the presentation, there are several skills, but one thing that I feel which will be a very handy skill for all people to have is digital upskilling, because that is going to happen, and it could be any form, and it's not something that you will learn today and you're done with. It's unlike our degrees, right? So because once we are done with B Pharma or M Pharma, it's something that we are done with and that stays with us for life. But this digital upskilling is something that you have to continuously focus on and keep developing. That's one area I feel it's absolutely significantly important. The other, which I don't want to sound condescending, but I personally had this feeling as I grew, and Gurjot, you may have faced this as well, although you were always very confident. But as I went from India to abroad, I actually, like I said in my talk as well, I needed to develop to be more, more vocal, more eloquent, so that my voice, I have a seat on the table. So a lot of the times when I work with my colleagues in India as well, I have to actually ask them to, can you please speak up? When we are in a team meeting, so people are shy to speak up. So that's something that you need to build that confidence as well. It's a soft skill that gets developed over a period of time, but make sure you always continuously put in an effort there as well, and each day you will become better at it. Those are the two skills I believe personally have helped me, and hopefully will benefit Shoolini students as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaspreet. Yeah, so I'm also
please go, Dr.
Yes, I'm also having some of the queries related to your presentation. So before that, I really like the idea of having that casual master club, especially. So that would be the place where our PG students, even the research students, can speak out. Some casual information may be shared, casual speaking may happen. So I really like the idea. And coming to your last slide, as you explained about the sleep as a thirst area. So just to aware, one of the research group is working on the sleep deprivation as well as the circadian rhythm disruption leading to the neurological complications. So 2 or 3 students are working on this area under my guidance itself. So two queries I'm having, which is related to the students itself. When we talk about innovation, number one, so innovation, every time we assume that would be new, coming fresh from the mind. So I totally believe there would not be any mind which doesn't have any striking power. So every mind has the queries as the student has, but there would be the issue of getting out, right? So the people feel shy to making these queries or the striking out of the mind to make as an innovation. So do you want to spell to the students any technique to get their innovation out from their mind?
Yeah. Uh, uh, so I think you said it right. So in terms of it's a part of shyness, which I think all of us as when we grew up in India, I don't know, maybe it's just I felt personally as well. It's just inbuilt into us that we don't share ideas. There are a few who do, who are more vocal and share. There will be a lot of them who may not share. My only advice to those students would be that, see, consider no idea as a bad idea. You never know, your idea could actually be, resulting in the next big innovation. So do share that. Take it as a small solutions approach. You may think that it's not a big idea, but think about it. It may help, solve a small problem. And even though it helps solve a small problem, it may help improve somebody's life. So don't be shy in sharing that idea. And then maybe there could be a safe network that you could create. Maybe there could be I mean, when I remember when I was studying at NUS, we had a journal club. So I'm sure you guys may be having or something that you could look into. So what we did was we created a group where people would come in, like I think it was every Friday or every other Friday during lunchtime, because everybody is reading papers or they have ideas and all, right? And then they'll come into that meeting and then they'll share about, oh, I read this paper in Nature, or I read this paper in Science, or I read this paper in International Journal of Pharmaceutics, and this is something. So it's an open sharing session where people share. And then what happened from that was it actually created a string of ideas, because somebody who shared from the paper, somebody else actually said, oh, what if we do more on this one? What if we add this element into this? And from there, several projects were born for us, and we could publish several papers out of it. So it's this communal sharing environment that you can create. You could call it journal club. I mean, Toastmasters Club is a little different, because then it's more about public speaking, and that could be on any topic. It could be on something that happened in Himachal politics, or something that happened in the Ayurvedic space recently, and you just have to prepare a 10-minute or a 15-minute speech and all. Yeah, so that those venues you can create for students may help them.
Great suggestion. One more point related to the graduating students, that how important to select the job versus the higher education for the graduating students especially.
Yeah, I think it actually goes down to what your passion is, right? So what higher education also varies. So a lot of people from B Farm may go into an MBA kind of a career track, which is more managerial, more management, marketing, sales kind of a career track. There could be other people who want to go into the research track. It depends on what you want to do with your career, right? So that's I mean, there could be people who want to graduate after B Farm and then just go out and work and enjoy the freedom and have financial freedom. Nothing's wrong. It's about what you want to do. I mean, if you are stuck in a situation where you're not able to make a decision on whether you want to go for an MBA or a PhD, or you want to go out into the industry after your B Farm, talk to somebody who can help you. I mean, your professors are around there. I'm willing to help as much as I can. I'll open up to that. You have lovely professors at Shoolini. Maybe it could be a career discussion. Sometimes when we were studying our bachelor's, a lot of the times, we did not know what, I mean, when I joined DIPSAR, and Gurjot will probably attest to it, we don't know, I didn't even know what a GRE is before we took the exam. So when we joined through the course, through talking to seniors, we got to know. And then we reached out to those seniors who were studying overseas, or we talked to our professors who were guiding those students to study overseas and all. So I think if you are stuck, don't keep it within you. Share that information with somebody who can help. Now, Shoolini is a big university. I don't know if you have a school of management there or not. So people who want to do an MBA could speak to management school professors. At least that will give them a broader perspective. Or talk to friends who have graduated. I can offer help as much as I can.
Thank you, Dr. Jaspreet, for the great discussion as well as the idea that you shared. And even in future, we would like you to come to the board and even to the school, interacting with the student as well as the faculty for the further ideas. Over to Dr. Deepak. Yeah.
Okay, I have one question, Dr. Kochar. So what challenges do you see for the pharmacy graduates, the fresh pharmacy graduating students, in terms of availability of jobs in this post-COVID era? So what should be, for what they should be prepared for in this era? That means before COVID, the situation was completely different as far as availability of jobs is concerned. And today, the availability is quite different. So what are your views on that?
Yeah, I can't speak for the Indian market because I have not really looked into it as such. But globally, pharma as a pharma, and then I will tell students to look not just for pharma, look broadly, because a lot of companies do consumer health as well. Like I talked about e-pharmacies and those kind of skills as well. So consider as broader scope, right? So you don't just focus on pharma companies itself. But I do feel amongst all industries, pharma is actually well poised in this situation, especially innovative pharma. When the last pandemic happened in 1918, there is a statistic that the companies who invest, so a lot of companies thought, it's doomsday. We should close down our R&D centers. We'll just, we'll close down or scale down our operations and all. There were companies like Sanofi back then in France. They actually invested a lot more in R&D, and that's when they started working on a lot more vaccines. And you see the companies, and this is just one example, the companies who invested a lot post-pandemic, they actually grew a lot more and had a fair share in the market. Sanofi would not be where it is today if it not for that investment post-COVID, post-Spanish flu in 1918 to 1920. So a lot of the companies, the pharma companies that I've talked to a few people around, they're actually thinking of this as an opportunity. And I do feel that within the pharma world, the opportunities, maybe in the short term, it's a little difficult period as companies get to the grips with the situation, but the long-term scope is actually quite bright. And I would advise students to look broadly, not just pharma companies, look into consumer health companies, look into cosmetic companies, look into herbal manufacturing organizations, herbal companies. I mean, Himalaya is a big company. Dabur is a big company there as well. They do a lot of research. Dabur does a lot of research. They hire lots of PhDs as well. Yeah, I mean, those are a few thoughts that I have, not specifically for the Indian market, but generally speaking. I think Dr. Kapoor is on mute.
Okay, there's a question from Dr. Deepak Kumar. He's asking that what is the scope for pharma graduates in Singapore, as you are already there?
See, Singapore is a great country, but it's a small country relatively, right? So we have a few manufacturing organizations here, but it's a small economy. So a lot of the work that happens in Singapore doesn't happen per se for Singapore. It happens for the region. So it's more of a headquarter-like environment, and then there are a few manufacturing operations. The scope is good. The only thing is getting in here has become harder, primarily because, a lot of the times the companies are hiring graduates from local universities as well. So unless you are here, you've studied here, the scope is there. It's slightly better, but coming from overseas, getting a job straight away is not something that is happening widely. A lot of the times I've seen people who have worked in Indian organizations. I mean, there's a person who has just moved in an apartment close to ours, and he was working for Pfizer in India, and then Pfizer moved him here because he was performing so well in India. Pfizer then moved him to Singapore, so now he's working here. So that's obviously an opportunity which could arise in future. But from an education standpoint, the pharmacy school here is actually quite good. Um, and there's only one pharmacy school, which is at National University of Singapore. So, but if students are looking for careers overseas, then I mean, Singapore is great, but then there are other bigger markets like in Europe, or US is obviously the biggest market. So think about those as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kochhar. So if we do not have any more questions, so we'll close the session now. And I would like to thank Dr. Kochhar, and I would also like to thank all the participants, Dr. Rohit Goyal, and all the students, attendees, and other participants who have attended the session for this. I would like to invite Dr. Kochhar to Shoolini University whenever he visits India, and we'd love to have you here, sir. And please do visit us and visit our campus, come to our labs, and go and all over the university. You are welcome. So, anything, Dr. Rohit, you want to add?
Yeah, thank you. It was a perfect session for the graduating students, especially because, as I can say, their exams have been over on 8th of June, probably, yeah. And so they have a plan to have the summer vacation, but they cannot go out. So in this session, we were putting certain webinars, hardly 1 to 2 every week. So this is the first session that we are going in, and extremely thankful to Dr. Kochhar for this wonderful session for the students, and especially attendees, all the students, as I can see around 100 attendees who are attending around. So thank you, thanks a lot coming for this session, and we will welcome for you further to the university and further endeavors in terms of research as well as the collaborative work. So as we have the pharmaceutics department, as Dr. Deepak said, the pharmaceutics lab is working on different areas. So we will definitely get into it for the collaboration in future. Thank you, Dr. Jaspreet.
Certainly. I mean, I think you guys don't need to vacation, right? You're already at a holiday destination. So you're living in the hills, so you guys don't need to go on a vacation. But jokes apart, I mean, yeah, so good luck to the students with their results. I hope your professors are lenient with you. They give you good marks. And if you have any questions beyond this talk, do find me on LinkedIn or drop a message. And I'll be happy to help. And yes, when I am in India, whenever things improve, I really look forward to visiting Shoolini and meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
My pleasure. Thank you. Take care, guys. Bye.